It's no secret that we are in a tough spot economically speaking. Prices keep increasing and wages don't seem to keep up. Businesses claim that they need to make drastic decisions in order to stay afloat. And so it got me to thinking, which is worse, getting laid off or getting a pay cut? Let's talk about it on today's episode of Coffee with Torie. Good morning, and welcome to Coffee with Torie. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button and leave a comment below introducing yourself. I'd love to say hi to all of my new friends. I was on LinkedIn the other day and I was seeing all of these very interesting posts. It was like 50% of the posts were all about getting laid off or trying to find work or, staff reductions or restructuring and all of these different things. But then there was another bit of the post that were like, we're hiring, we're expanding, we need more people, and all of these different things. And so I thought, you know what, this sounds like a great episode idea. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so let's start with getting laid off. So I've been seeing a lot of posts on LinkedIn, as I had said in the intro, and a lot of them were like, oh, my company is restructuring, or after 15 years with this company, I was suddenly laid off. They're closing my store, all of these different things. And so getting laid off sucks. Let's just put it out there, right? Let's just start with full transparency and honesty. Getting laid off from a job, especially if you've been there for like 15, 20, 25 years, whatever, is like the worst feeling in the entire world, especially if you thought that you were going to be committed to this job forever or to this company forever. And so for all of the companies that are just like, oh, we're just going to lay a bunch of people off and not even think about it. I have very strong opinions about places like that, but that sounds like a whole other episode that we could talk about that. So leave a comment below if that is something you want to expand on with me. But with that being said, with all of these alleged layoffs, and I say alleged only because we know that some companies are doing these massive layoffs, like it's all over the news. So we see it on LinkedIn. Company-wide emails are getting, leaked. And then some of them, it makes me wonder, is it an actual layoff or are they saying that to discourage people from applying to that company? Like I know that there are lots of businesses out there that do very shady and questionable things. Like, for example, think about like back in 2020 during the pandemic. And then when everything started to calm back down, they were like, oh, we're hiring. And there's all of these hiring posts. And yet nobody is actually hiring. It's always we're fully staffed. But if you go onto their website, it says they're hiring. The reasons behind it, who knows? It could be tax reasons. It could be legal reasons. It could be a million and one reasons. Who knows what the reason is, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the layoffs we are seeing aren't real layoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a ploy to convince people not to work at this place or to scare the current employees into trying to work harder so that way they don't lose their job. But for the layoffs that are actually real and the ones for everyone who's lost their job, first of all, let me say I'm so sorry. And I really hope that you can find something else, something better, and you work for a company that really truly values you and respects you and won't do something like that. And it makes me sad that so many of y'all out there have gotten laid off out of nowhere, especially when you've been with a place for so long. So I am very sorry that happened to you. And I really, 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 really hope that you can find something else that is much better, that aligns with what you want to do, and that will actually treat you right. As far as the businesses go that done that, here's my stance on it. Any business that does something questionable and shady like that to the point where people's lives are completely flipped upside down without any regard to them, I say that one day your time will come and you will feel what that feels like. And when that happens, don't be surprised. The truth of the matter is, in every business, just like how you need customers or clients, guests, or some other thing to keep your business afloat, where they're the ones that are giving you the money, you equally need employees to actually do the job, unless you're willing to do the job 100% all by yourself all the time, never taking a day off. And hey, there are some entrepreneurs out there that are all about the hustle, and they have no problem working sun up to sundown every single day to do that. But when you have mega corporations like this, where there's multiple locations, there are hundreds of thousands of employees, if they were not there, you would have no business. There's a place I used to work at, and I had found out after I had long left that place, there was a lot of things wrong with that place, and to hear what happened is not too surprising. To be completely honest, I kind of expected something like this to happen a little bit sooner, but I had left years before this incident, and I found out through the grapevine that the company started laying people off. Now, to be fair, this is one of those companies that didn't really handle the pandemic that well. They furloughed a lot of people, and they basically shut all of their stores down during that time. Now, granted, those who stayed with the company during that time frame, they decided, once everything started opening up, they would stick with them and, go back into the actual stores. And some other people moved on. But several years later, a couple years later, I found out that they basically started closing some stores down, and they started laying off people, changing positions, eliminating positions, and so on and so forth. So much so that store managers ended up overseeing multiple stores within their city, within their surrounding area. So they were almost like acting district managers without the title and without getting paid the district manager salary. So a bunch of store managers had gotten laid off. A bunch of assistant managers had gotten laid off. Some leads, like sales leads, guest leads, customer service leads, whatever have you, they got laid off. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't know, honestly, if these store managers volunteered to do that, or if it was a situation of you are going to do this or else. But I think poor business decisions shouldn't be, because a business does something wrong or they make a poor decision, it shouldn't be on the lower level managers or even assistant managers to be punished by those poor decisions. The reasons why stores were closed and why so many people got laid off is debatable. It could be profits, it could be inflation, it could be the greed of the corporation. Who knows what the reason why those people were unfortunately let go. But if that were to be the decision, forcing, if you will, someone to do the job of so many other people without increasing their wage and without giving them the title at least, is something that's quite gross and despicable, if I'm being completely honest, in my own personal opinion. So then it makes me think, okay, if that's the case, would it have been better for all of them to get laid off? I don't know. It could have been better to get laid off. At least, you could have, depending on the state, they could have gotten maybe unemployment until they found something else. Depending on how much experience they had when the layoff happened, maybe they could have gone to a different company that valued them and treated them with respect and laid out exactly, all the different things. But I don't want to leave this topic on a negative note. There was a place I had heard in my research for this episode, a grocery store had to lay off all of their employees because the store was closing. Now, the people in that store, they knew about a month or two in advance that this was coming. They wasn't blindsided by it. The store was struggling. They just couldn't keep it open. It just is what it is. So they had a meeting, and everyone had told, the managers came and told corporate officials, corporate managers came in and they explained the situation. They're like, hey guys, we're so sorry. We got to let you guys go. However, if you're willing to stick with us for the remaining time up until closure, we will maintain your salary the entire time, but we will give you an additional 2 weeks after your last day worth of pay. Hopefully that will help you guys just until you find something else. They also, crazy enough, brought in competitors, their actual competitors, as a transition of like, hey, we're closing, but maybe you could go over to this store instead if they're hiring. They brought them in, they introduced them to the staff, and so they could interview with those other stores, those other competitors, to see if maybe they could go there once the store closed. That is wonderful. Like, you could tell they genuinely cared about their employees. And though the layoff was something that sucked and it was not great for anybody involved in it, at least the business owners, the corporate leaders, the managers had enough respect and value for the work that those employees did, that even though a layoff was inevitable, they did everything in their power to make the transition as smooth as possible and to make it easy. They didn't give them extra work. They didn't blindside them like a day before, like, hey, goodbye. They really gave them time to adjust to the news, find something else, and even thank them for their work by allowing them to continue working up until closure with an additional 2 weeks of pay. And that is how you handle a layoff. So an alternative to getting laid off would be to experience a pay cut. One might argue, well, hey, the pay cut sucks, but at least I still have a job. Honestly, I can attest to this. I had experienced this with the place that I worked. After everything had happened with coming out of, the pandemic, and then with inflation being crazy and a little bit lower of sales than, expected, the company decided we're going to just go ahead and cut the pay across the entire company, and this will help the longevity of our business. Now, coming from my degree is in business management, and so I understood that. I understand a little bit about how economics works as far as a business is concerned. So to me, everything made sense. How they told us, I felt was okay. It was decent. Our district managers told us personally, at least those of us who were leaders. I'm not sure about those under us. I think the store managers handled that. But it seemed fine how they told us. It was like, okay, this sucks, but it's not going to be forever. Hopefully, if everything works out, if we make sales like we're supposed to make and all of these different things, then maybe we'll get our rates back. I think in the beginning it was fine. But what you should not do when a pay cut has to happen is increase spending somewhere else. So after the news broke that all of us were getting a pay decrease, we started seeing all of these high executive promotions out of nowhere. VP of this, VP of that, VP of this, VP of that. Okay, whoa, that's crazy. So is it the case of you've taken our pay to give to them? Or is the business really struggling that much? Who knows? Of course, those questions were never answered. They were never answered. But from the perspective of, we're told this is going to be for the longevity of the business, and then that way we don't have to lay anyone off, only to see promotions of such executive positions, new positions opening out of nowhere. What a strange thing. In addition to that, to raise expectations when lowering the pay is also not a great idea. And it also doesn't really make a lot of sense. To see your wage decrease and to see other people's wages not only increase, but to be promoted into a position that never existed in the first place. And then on top of that, to be informed that not only are the expectations of yesterday still applicable, but here are additional expectations. And when you lose so many staff, you lose so much staff behind that. One would think, okay, well, we've decreased in our employees, we've decreased in our staffing, expenditures. Why don't we increase the wages back up for those who stayed as an incentive to help them because they're staying with us, even though this is tough. Yeah, they're short staffed, but at least we can compensate them a little bit better now because we have extra money. No, instead to put the pressure on those individual places, those individual stores or leaders or managers or whatever, to restaff at a rate far below what the expectations are, makes you wonder, would it have been better for the company to just lay off everybody? Go ahead and, pay some kind of severance for all of the upper managers and allow everyone below to collect unemployment until they find something else? Or is it better to cut their rate, increase their expectations, and then expect them to be excited and proud and, give praise to these people who get promoted into these high level positions? I mean, which is worse? There's a phrase I've been hearing recently. I know all of us should be familiar with quiet quitting. The situation when you start acting your actual wage instead of going above and beyond, you bring it back and start, acting and doing just what is required of you for how much you're getting paid and nothing more. But recently, I had been hearing about a phrase called quiet hiring, where businesses or companies would fire or, allow someone to quit and then not replace them, and then take that workload and give it to somebody else. Is that fair? Probably not, unless you're willing to increase that wage of the other person who's now doing double the work. But I feel as though when it comes to the debate of is it better to be laid off or if it's better to have a pay cut, there also has to be a conversation of, is this a situation of quiet hiring, or are we just kind of waiting out the storm? Because if it's a situation of quiet hiring where if someone gets a pay cut, they are unable to sustain their lifestyle with that new pay rate that they have to leave, and then forcing the others who stay to pick up the workload doesn't seem like the best move for anybody involved. Because all it's going to do is produce lower quality work, because all of the associates and all of the managers and everyone who is working is going to be burnt out. They're going to be exhausted, and they're not going to put as much time and care into something, that they would have if they were able to only focus on just their one thing. Then in that case, it's better to lay off. Maybe it is better if you want to preserve the integrity of the business and of the quality of the product. It might be better to just go ahead and shut that whole project down and move on to something else instead of, cutting the pay and having people produce lower quality work or not finding people to replace the person that was lost. So be it being laid off or having a pay cut, what is the best solution for you when that happens? How do you come back from something like that? It's so hard to think about, especially if you're the kind of person who enjoys working for somebody. Like, you have that mindset of I enjoy going to work and then coming home and being able to kind of disconnect work and home kind of thing. If that's kind of your vibe, it's hard to think about what do we do when that happens? I will tell you that there are some options when the place that you're working for either does a massive layoff or lays you off specifically, or if you get a pay cut at a place whose expectations are ridiculously high, and then they turn around and reduce your pay and then expect even more from you. Side hustles are a thing right now. Everyone has some kind of side hustle going on, whether it be some type of gig work, which is a video coming up. So make sure you subscribe, because we're going to talk about gig workers in another episode. But it could be that some people are starting their own business. Some people are doing podcasts like myself. Some other people turn to being writers and pursuing their dreams that way. So maybe the option in this case is a sign. Maybe it's a sign you know what, this thing that I want to do, this thing that has been a dream of mine. I've been putting it on the back burner. You know what? Maybe I just need to just buckle down and just get it done. I got laid off from this job or they've cut my pay. So let me stop and go and pursue this thing that I've always wanted to do, this like purpose I have in my life. Another option is to go somewhere else. I will say, with the pay cut that happened with the place I worked at, for myself, I felt like I was blindsided by the pay cut specifically. Now, I had a feeling something was going to happen. After the holidays, I didn't know what it was, but like I had a feeling that something was not good. Something not good was about to happen. So I didn't know, but I do know that there were some people who kind of knew the pay cut was coming. I know other people were completely blindsided by it. And so sometimes you might be able to see it coming. I have a friend who just experienced massive layoffs at her company, at her job, and thankfully she was not part of that crew that was laid off, but she is expecting yet another round of layoffs to come soon, and she's not sure if she'll have her job or not. So maybe you would be like her or like myself, or like we have a feeling something's coming, and once you get that feeling, don't ignore it. Use that time to maybe start pursuing somewhere else, start looking at other jobs, looking at other companies. If you want to work for somebody else, if there's a place in mind that you're like, oh, I'd love to work there. Maybe, take that feeling of, hey, something's coming down this pipeline and start pursuing something else, updating your resume, updating your portfolio, working on other projects outside of work to really get yourself ready for when that thing happens, you are able to transition into something else and you're not stuck. Again, if you think something's coming and you are of that start your own business, do your side hustle kind of thing, then go ahead and start doing that. Open up your laptop and get to work, start writing that book, start making those connections, get on TikTok, I don't know. But start doing that thing that you want to do, especially if you know it's coming. This way you're not completely blindsided when that happens. I give a lot of slack, or I say a lot of things about things in the business world that are not okay, and this is one of those things. To not tell them what's coming is awful, especially when businesses expect and almost demand that you give them some warning when you yourself are about to leave, and yet that is not reciprocated to the employees. And so the fact that businesses aren't courteous anymore, there are some that are. There are some very, very, very rare businesses that are very courteous to their employees, and they try to give as much heads up as they can that, hey, something is going to happen, go ahead and prepare and brace yourself for it. But majority of them are not like that. And because most of them are not like that, these massive layoffs happen, which are blindsiding people. These pay cuts are happening that are blindsiding people, and they don't know what to do. Neither options are great. We don't know which one's worse. It just kind of depends on your situation. And so because they don't give you guys warning before it happens, it is so important to kind of build a little cushion around yourself just in case, because you can't really trust a business. As horrible and as pessimistic as that sounds, the truth is a business, a company you're working for, that's not your family. It's not your friends. They're there to make money and to provide a place of work, I guess. They're there to sell a product or a service. They're there to create or something, but they're not your friends and they're not your family. So while they have proven that they're not going to show you that level of courtesy, it is important to protect yourself and have a cushion and a foundation ready just in case something comes down the pipeline that is not going to be good for you. So think about what you want to do. Think about your options. Start your own thing. Get into the gig work business. Do a side hustle. Start looking for a company that aligns with your core values and aligns with who you are and what you enjoy. There are lots of companies out there, and there are some that are really great. But really do your due diligence and really think about it so that way you're prepared in case something goes wrong. That is my advice to you. Anyways, a little heavier of a topic, but I saw it on LinkedIn and it really got me into thinking, got my wheels turning. And so I had to make an episode all about that. So leave me a comment below. Let me know which is worse, getting laid off or getting a pay cut with increased expectations. I don't know. To me, they both sound absolutely horrible. I have been through one of them and I have seen the other, and neither option are great. So let me know in the comments below what you think is your personal opinion on the matter. And if you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to introduce yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one.